off the top of my head, and the Lord would tell me what to say. And I was scared at first, but He always told me. Before the people finished their question, the Lord told me what the answer was in the text. That was a big miracle. But Elder Torkelson sat there at his desk, and he was the president. So these other guys, they're not going to go against the union president because he's the boss. And he was a good leader. So he let me talk all that time, and then Elder Torkelson says, well, does anybody have any questions? We'd already gone an hour. It's supposed to be a half an hour, and then we're going full 60 minutes.
Any questions is going to lengthen it more and more.
Yeah. And so some of these guys that didn't agree with me being, going into the churches, and I'm not being paid with the conference, so they can't control me. And so Elder Torkelson said, anybody have any questions? Yeah, we got questions, and so on and so forth. And some were in favor and some were not. But that meeting lasted for 2.5 hours. And some of my supporters were outside, and they wanted to come in and said, let them come in and make comments. We don't want the layman to think that we are being authoritarian and being dictators, so they wanted to give a good impression to the layman. Okay, so that opened the door, and I was allowed to go in and preach to any church that invited me.
Wow.
And several of them invited me there in the Northwest.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it was. He said, I'll open every door. But, that was 1977. And then 78, 79, and 80, we moved. Fall of 1977, 1979. We moved to West Virginia. We were there for 3.5 years. And went all over the West Coast, from Maine to Florida, preaching this message. The message will return with power to the east. Prophecy was, and it did. So after 3.5 years, moved back to Oregon, which I didn't really want to do. And then I wrote a book. I was going to bring a copy of it, The Wonderful Truth About Our Heavenly Father. Almost 400 pages, a little bigger book. Anyway, that was 70, that was in the, up to the end of the 80s and into the 90s. I had a Bible store in Newberg, Oregon. Went through a lot of stuff. And I had a very good friend.
I'm going to ask you to fit something in along the way here.
Go ahead, yeah.
Because you were working for the conference as a pastor.
Yeah.
But the time came when there was a separation. And as I remember it, they sent you to get therapy to correct your disobedient behavior. They had you shocked. You were supposed to have, I think it was 21 treatments, and you got 7 or 8 of those before the Lord asked you if you'd had enough. And then later they came to ask you about ordination with the required submission to everything they would tell you to do.
Okay, I have written about this in my life story, and I can send it out to people. This, as you say, was what broke me from the conference, because I looked at the conference leaders as God. They were the leaders. They could not make mistakes. They were infallible. And the Lord knew this. And He knew He could not give me the final message if I was going to be under their thumb. And you just look around, and how many Adventist ministers are preaching this character message? It's hardly anybody. They're afraid. Even Morris Lewis, who taught me, he never would write anything about this.
They might believe it, but they wouldn't want to express it.
He was afraid. He was afraid that he would be censored and kicked out of the conference. The power that was so strong. Their authoritarianism. Well, yes, Dale. The conference president, he's passed away since. His name was Arco Dart was his father. His name was Charles Dart. And he was a very nice man. He was a very friendly guy. Ben Leach was the president of the union. And Charles was very young, but that was his brother-in-law. So he brought a little nepotism here. He brought Charles to be the conference president. And I know why he did that, because keep it all in the family and we'll all work together. Okay, so what happened was...
It's low battery.
Okay, low battery. We're running out of steam here.
Okay, what we do is we close that, and then